The Fantasmagorium is proud to present Money, Murder, and Minnesota, a retrospective of all things Fargo. Welcome to 2010. Cellular tellulars are less than reliable. This here is the third season of Fargo. There are twins, parolees, and the criminal element. Snow, we got it. Oh my God, it's so good to be back in Fargo. Lick the stamp and send the tampon. The award-winning Coen Brothers executive produced and Noah Hawley run FX series of Fargo is what we are here to talk about. So let's go. Kat is here. I am Scotty R37 and Steve had new floors put down. How are you doing, Kat?
Very good.
I am... Oh my stars. Can I just gush?
Yes.
Okay. It is so good to be back in Fargo.
Isn't
it? Like, it's so fun to go backwards because I loved Chris Rock. I loved everything about season 4. I thought it was a great story, but it was not Fargo.
No, the way you're gushing right now about how much better it is to be back tells me that you didn't love the 4th season.
Well, and it's a funny thing because you sent me a message right after we finished last episode of the finale of season 4. And you were like, we didn't review it. And I was like, we'll do it next week.
No, we didn't rate it.
We didn't rate it, right. Well, and the worst thing that we could do to season 4 is watch the first 2 episodes of season 3 and be like, no, this is Fargo, yo.
It is, though.
I love season 4. I love it for what it is, but it ain't Fargo.
I don't love it even as what it is.
Oh, okay.
Love it even as what it is, but yeah.
Okay. I love it for what it is, but it's not Fargo. This, in 2 episodes, did more for my love of Fargo.
Than the whole season of 4, yeah.
Yes.
Which tells you a lot about how bad season 4 is.
Okay. So what would you give season 4?
Like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm there.
Because like you and I both said that we're like, yeah, well, like I also texted Scotty and behind the scenes news that, hey, for our penultimate episode for season 4, do you mind if we throw episode 9 on there as well, just to go baps? Because so that way we have more things to talk about for the finale. And he's like, yeah, sure. This is a performance-based season. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it was. But right off the bat, we were already back in Fargo, and I love that the cold open of season 3 basically tells you what the theme of the entire season is going to be. So we begin in...
No, we can't begin yet, Kat. We do actually have an audience. I would like to acknowledge that audience. As always, Lemon! It's so nice to see you, Lemon. Everybody's doing a brand new dance now. Come on, baby.
Do the Evolution 78. Hi.
Thank you. We got Taylor Swift, greater than Disney Star Wars MCU. Thank you so much for being here, Matt G. Look forward to seeing you at Star Trek 3. Hey, Herc is here. Hey, Flyboy. Long time no see. I was recently over at Sci-Fi Nation. Do the Evolution says, never seen the Fargo series, which is a great way to start off. Spoilers.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. And the movie of Fargo is obviously great. I only have it on DVD. I don't have it on Blu-ray.
I do have the Blu-ray. And this season we're reviewing is not on Blu-ray. I believe it's only on DVD. It did get... I think it might have gotten a Blu-ray release in overseas, like in Russia or something, because they didn't have... that channel there, maybe, and I'm sure there's bootleg Blu-rays you could get that people have done, because, you know, the show is shot like digital HD, but FX has the station FX that it's on has a habit of putting later seasons of shows only on DVD and not Blu-ray, based on ratings and how they're selling. And to this day, even season 3 and 4 both do not have DVDs or Blu-rays, and it's been since I think October 2017 when season 3 got put out on DVD. So it's been a while, and so it's safe to say it's not getting a release.
Well, and it's Fox, like it's FX, right? So
Yeah.
It's owned by Disney.
Right, and with the news recently that Sony by the end of the year is going to be handling their physical media stuff. I mean, I don't know if they're going to backtrack into TV shows of, the sister network as opposed to focusing on the actual film catalog, which honestly I would favor them doing that more than the TV shows. But yeah,
It's it's interesting for people who do care for physical media and want to have those things no matter where they go.
Yes, that's why I purchased it digitally way back in.
Well, that doesn't guarantee the square root of jack squat.
Well, that's why I purchased it then, and guess what? It's been there for 6.5 years and it has not left.
Well, I can't wait until you check tomorrow.
Well, it yeah, maybe, but
hey, that's my physical media argument, is that I was watching Doctor Who on Netflix, and one day I went back to see the second part.
Well, Netflix is also a little different in that they already lease things there for a limited time if it's not a Netflix original. Whereas if you purchase digitally on a,
I just want the licensors.
If you purchase something digitally on a service specifically meant for movies, there's a stronger incentive for that company to maintain the lease with whatever studio is leasing it to them because they make money on it. Which is why I would never buy digital media on, like, say, a video game console like some people do. It's like, why would you do that? Because of course they're not going to maintain it. Their bread and butter is video games. But we're getting off topic.
Yeah, but I'm excited to talk about all of this. But you're right. We are getting excited, or we're getting off topic.
Cinema Gulp says
well, Cinema Gulp is making reference to the original Fargo film.
You're such a super lady, Margie. I'm so lonely.
I'm so lonely.
He didn't break into song like Kim Jong-il from Team America. I'm so lonely.
I'm showronery. Showronery.
Oh, jeez.
I know. Anyway, so we're back in Minnesota. It's 2010.
Yes.
We start off the entire series in 1988.
Yes, in East Berlin.
Apparently.
And this, as I was saying, is the cold open sets the tone for what the whole theme of this whole season is going to be. And we see an agent with the Stasi, Soviet police, secret police or whatever. And they've brought in this guy for questioning because they say,
Are they Soviet?
What?
Are they Soviet? Is the guy Soviet?
Well, 1988, East Berlin, yes. Soviet Union was still around at the time.
I'm dumb, I'm asking.
Yes, and so they bring this guy in. He says, my name is Jacob Underletter. And they're like, well, we have, you're from this address that you list off. Yes, yeah, I live there. Or he says, it's like, well, we have a name of, your name's Yuri Gurka. He's like, no, it's not. He's like, yes, you're Yuri Gurka. You're 20 years old. You live here. You have your girlfriend is Helga Albrecht. And he's like,
old guy. He looks like he's about 40.
Yeah, he looks like Soviet Winters 40, which he looks a little older. He's like, sir, as you can plainly see, I haven't been 20 years old in a very long time. And then he holds up a photograph and he shows of the body. He says, I've seen this. This is the woman, Helga Albrecht. I've seen her with my own eyes. Like, it's true, sir, that I have a girlfriend named Helga, but her name is Ungerlad. He's like, what are you saying? The state? But so you live there then? No, I mean, yes, I live there, but I don't know who this Yuri Gurka guy. I'm Ungerlad. And he says, are you trying to say that the state is wrong? Well, no, I'm just saying.
Nine.
No. Yeah, no, I'm just plainly obvious that I'm not. He's like, sir,
this is all subtitled.
And he's like, Kurt, we're not here to tell stories. We're here to find the truth. And you see that the guy's shoes have snow on them, and the snow's been melting.
Slippers, not shoes. Slippers.
Slippers is melting and draining down.
He's been taken from his home.
Yes, and that's another thing he tells him. He's like, the cops who brought me here, they saw my girl. She served them coffee. It's like she's not dead, but this guy, typical Soviet stubbornness. Oh, the state can't be wrong, no matter how plainly obvious it is that they're wrong. Yeah. It can't be.
It hits hard because I'm Canadian.
Yes. So he's completely lost, this kid, this man, what he's gonna do about this. And that's where you have the words come up on screen, and it says, "This is a true story." But then the words.
Now this was beautiful. This is beautiful.
This is great. So it says, "This is a true story," as the camera is zooming in towards this portrait of the trees on the wall. But then the word "true" fades away, and it just says, "This is a story." And then the rest of it fades away till it just says "story." And that is the emphasis on this, because he's like, and this is the whole season about true facts, alternate facts, what is real and what is not. As we zoom into it does a crossfade from the zooming into the portrait, and we're in Minnesota, and you see some kids, playing and putting up a snowman, and we're in Eden Prairie, which is near
Eden Prairie. You know what? Hey, Protein. Hello, show. But no, Eden Prairie. I have a soft spot for Eden Prairie.
Yes.
Have you ever seen Mallrats?
Not yet. I still have it on my watch list.
Oh, well, Eden Prairie, like Eden Prairie Mall in Mallrats, was filmed in Minnesota at the Eden Prairie Mall. And so...
That's cool, because the other Eden has a connection as well.
Wait till we get to Maiden Lane.
Yes, and so we see this big house and this big 25th anniversary party for Emmett and Stella Stussy. And we go inside, and
who plays Emmett? We
have Ewan McGregor playing Emmett Stussy. We have Michael Stuhlbarg as his attorney and confidence man, Cy Phelps, his right-hand man. And, Emmett's wearing this white tux, and Cy's wearing this black suit, looking all professional. And they're talking to this guy sitting on the couch, and they're like, "Hey, so that guy you put us in contact with for the loan," he's like, "Oh, no, I put you in contact with the broker, Mr. Ermintrout." We got his money, and we wanted to return it, but we called, and all we got were clicks and buzzers, and we thought maybe you knew how to get a hold of him. He's like, "I just put you in contact with the broker. I don't know who these guys are." But you recommended it. He's like, "I recommended the broker. I didn't recommend these guys. I don't know who they are."
What do you think the clicks and buzzers are?
I think it's a wiretap.
You think it's a wiretap? I thought it was like a fax line or a data line.
Something
where
like
you would get that wee ba-dong, ba-dong.
Because I have seen this season multiple times, because I think it's really good. But I think it's something.
How many times have you seen this season?
Probably 4 or 5 times. I love this season.
Holy crap, lady! You only have a finite amount of time on the earth.
This is a great season.
Oh. All right, you say so.
So he's like, "Yeah, you can't cut me on that." He's like, "Okay." So they go downstairs, and Emmett gives a big speech with his wife there, and to all the guests. And at the back, we see the other Ewan McGregor as he's playing identical twins. And the other Ewan McGregor looks well past his prime. He's kind of fat. He's balding. He's kind of not, his version of dressing up nice for this wedding anniversary isn't really that nice. And we find out that he is a parole officer, and he's dating his parolee, is played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. This is where.
Oh, do you want to get into the fucking thing? Well, you want to get into the real life thing?
This is where she and Ewan met in real life and got married afterwards. So,
divorced and married.
Well, divorced and married. So that's where Fargo is once again bringing people together, as it does in season 2.
Are you saying you're going to get divorced and married?
No. I'm saying no.
Is anybody? Can we do that? Can we make like a draw?
No. Why are you?
Do you like and subscribe this particular season of Fargo?
Why are you deviating about this?
I don't know. I'm just playing.
Okay, so
Because I think that Ewan McGregor and the reason I'm deviating about it and the reason I'm being coy and off-putting is because this is Ewan McGregor split with his wife, and it was because of an on-set romance. This is what I've heard through the National Equalizer. And they said that Mary Elizabeth Winstead was a homewrecker, and that Ewan McGregor was a bad husband. And so I'm like, sure.
Are you finished?
Like, is it that big a deal? Is it that big a deal in terms of public discourse, in terms of the relations of these two actors?
I don't know why.
Well, no, I'm asking you. Do you care?
No.
Great. So let's move on. You were saying Ray and Nikki.
Well,
Nikki is the
Ray is a parole agent, and she is Foley. She stays downstairs, but Ray is brought up into the same room where they were talking to the banker guy earlier, and they're trying to make conversation, and it's very awkward. And Emmett's like, "So, how's the car? How's the Camaro?" He's like, "It's a car."
It's
Emmett.
a car.
And Cy is just not having it at all, and he wants the and Ray is asking him his brother for $500, and he's like, "Well, why do you want the 500?" He's like, "Oh, that girl down there. Oh, she's the one. I want to buy her a ring, a proper ring, and all that." And you could tell from Cy's reaction that this is a common type of thing, like Ray coming and hitting him up for money. And Ray's eyes temporarily glance over to this stamp that is framed on the wall, and it's a red stamp showing Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill, as people know from the Greek. This Sisyphus is them to do the same thing every single day. He just rolls the boulder to the top of the hill, rolls back down. He's got to do it again.
And how much is the stamp worth? Like face value?
Face value, 2-cent stamp.
That's my 2 cents.
And Ray and Emmett notices he's looking at it, and he comments about it, and then they start arguing about how Ray insists that when their father died, that Emmett tricked him out of the stamp because it's turned out to be a rare stamp worth a ton of money. And Emmett's like, "Oh, come on,
2 dozen stamps."
Yeah, he's like, "Come on, man. You got the stamp. I got the car. And then you bugged me for that car. You begged me for it. Oh, give me the car. Oh, blah, blah, blah." And
you tricked me.
You tricked me. And, oh, no, it was this. But you can kind of tell. And Cy is just like, rolling his eyes, just not want to hear it. But I could kind of tell that Emmett was probably telling the truth in this instance. Yes, Emmett's successful because of the stamp. And yes, we see that Emmett and Cy are two completely ridiculous people, as we'll get to in a bit, with the facade of success because they have money. Whereas Ray is a real dimwit, as we'll see as the episodes progress. So
he's a hard worker.
I kind of buy it that Emmett's telling the truth, that Ray is probably the one who wanted the car and didn't like that he got a stamp and didn't understand the appreciation of the stamp. And so this is like the central antagonism between these two brothers, which is going to drive a lot of the season, is this stamp. And so
happy about that.
Yes. And so he doesn't really want to give him the money. And, and Cy is very much the driving force behind that. So they leave and they go to get their car, and the valet pulls it up. Yeah, exactly. And the valet pulls up the car, and we see that this is a really
This is my deal.
Yeah, it's a really crappy Camaro, and he gets in the car, and he sees
the Corvette.
The Corvette. That's right, the Corvette. And he sees the valet looking at him, holding out his hand. He's like, "What, you want a tip?" And he's like, "Yeah, get a real job."
We'll get there when we get there. But the thing is that he's so duplicitous. Like, Ray is terrible. He is callow, but conniving. He is no good. And the thing is, and it's an interesting dichotomy when you're talking about Emmett and Ray, is that, like, you, at the beginning, even of the first 2 episodes, you're like, wow, Ray is the good brother. And it's like, no, he's not. He's just as dumb.
Yes. It's just that Emmett managed to hide his stupidity a bit better behind the
No, he just wasn't successful enough to get caught. so high. Like, oh my God. But both of these people, both of these brothers, imagine if you had two John Hams from Fargo season 5. Imagine Roy Tillman times 2. Ugh. It gets worse.
Oh, it does. Of course, these first 2 episodes. So as they're driving away in the Camaro, and she's like, well, did you get the money? And he's like, and she's like, you need to really be free of this, of your brother. You need to settle this. I sense something's off about you. You need to fix this. Because she's really into things like, chi and, spiritualism and this, you need to get your mojo back and that kind of stuff. Yes, cinema gold. Yes, there's more to life than a little money, and here you are. It's a beautiful day. Yes. And so,
well, yes.
So she's like, you need to settle this thing with your brother so we can kind of, move on with our lives. And we see that, he's just a parole agent and his life's going nowhere fast.
He falls in love with Nikki Flugelman or whatever.
You get the sense that as ridiculous as Emmett and Cy are, especially Cy, I still get the sense that his reaction was probably an honest one, and that I get the sense that this isn't the first time that Ray has, fallen in love, except this time it seems more real, maybe. That he goes to them asking for money every time he gets this dumb idea in his head or whatever, trying to guilt trip his brother over the stamp to get him more, keep giving him money. And so it's like, okay, so he thinks he's in love enough that it's worth jeopardizing his job, because obviously it's not legal for, parole agent. There's conflict of interest there. Can't date your parolee. So that's going on. Meanwhile, we meet another character, Gloria Burgle. She's the recently former police chief, who is their station is being absorbed by the county, and her partner, Donnie Mashman, is a lovable dimwit, but he keeps calling her chief. She's like, I'm not chief anymore. He's like, oh yeah, sorry. Funny story about him. He's played by Canadian comedian Mark Forward. He's really funny, and he gets some of the best laughs this season. But they wanted to cast Jim Gaffigan, and because of a scheduling conflict, they couldn't get him. And unfortunately, they decided, as a result of not being able to get Gaffigan, that they reduced Donnie's role. He was supposed to be a main character in the season, and they reduced him a lot, apparently, which I was upset by, because I think this guy is great in this role as we see through the season. He's really funny, perfectly cast. I've never heard of this guy before, but I tried to look up his stand-up or something, because I think he's really great. And it's a shame that they cut his role back as a result.
I do no research. So it's interesting to hear that character being played by Jim Gaffigan. That would be cool. I appreciate the guy who's playing it. I think that if it were Gaffigan, it would take me out of it.
Well, that's what I mean, is I could picture how Gaffigan would play it, but I think this guy's better. He feels more authentic. He feels fun, and he's genuinely funnier, and he's great in this role. So I
like the way it worked out. Great.
Yeah. So except for the part where they cut the roll back, which kind of upset me. But
yes.
So Gloria goes.
I get that. Yeah.
Gloria goes to this hardware store.
Well, who plays Gloria?
Oh, Carrie Coon.
Who is Carrie Coon?
An actress.
Who is in a Ghostbusters movie or 2.
Yeah, and she was in Infinity War, and she was in a couple other things.
Well, good for her, the Carrie Coon.
Yeah, she played one of the members of the Thanos' Black Order.
Really?
Yeah, she was the girl in the Black Order. That was Carrie Coon.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Everyone's going all crazy about Sydney Sweeney, and I'm just watching. I'm watching Fargo season 3, looking forward to the new Ghostbusters movie being like Carrie Coon. That's the sexiest woman alive. Anyway,
married to Tracy Letts, as I heard.
No, happily married. I'm just saying she's attractive.
Oh, for sure. So we meet her at the beginning of a running gag that runs throughout the season, where automatic things through faucets, doors, faucets, and other types of automatic sensors do not respond to her at all. And so She's standing at the door. She's waving her arms around, trying to get this thing to respond, and she's tapping on the door.
Do you see me?
Yes.
Like, I'm not a ghost.
And we see her stepfather sitting behind the desk, and her son's there, and he comes over, and the door opens when he walks up, and he's like, Mom, all you have to do is stand there and wait. She's like, I was. Didn't you see me doing that? I mean, you see me standing here? She's like, yeah. And they make plans that they're going to go to the stepfather's house for dinner that night. And then she gets
Ennis.
Yes, his name is Ennis Stussy, and he lives in Eden Valley.
That is my favorite character of Fargo, of all of the Fargos that I've seen so far. I identify with Ennis. I love Ennis.
Why?
Because he's a mean, drunk asshole.
He's not fun like you.
Well, no, he's not. People don't like him. But I don't know. There's something about him. He doesn't even have a twinkle in his eye.
No, he does not. And he barely says a few words. And so
is he gonna be Thaddeus Mobley?
We'll see.
All right. No spoilers.
And so, meanwhile, Ray goes to this bar to meet one of his other parolees because he has taken his fiance, because remember, he and Nikki are engaged now, he says. So he's taken her advice that he needs to settle this thing with his brother. And so, realizing that he's not going to go and get anywhere talking to his brother straight or with Cy, he goes to meet this parolee played by Scoot McNairy, playing Maurice LeFay, who is a dumbass if there ever was one, I must say. And
sure.
Trying to, and Ray says, "Hey man, you failed your piss test." And we did get a neat montage of what Ray's basic day at work looks like. It goes around finding his parolees standing in the bathroom waiting to catch their piss, and finally
he collects urine. That's his main thing.
Like yeah. And so he tells them that, "Hey man, I could make this. I could change the results here if you do something for me. I need you to go to this fellow's house. I got the name, and I'll write down the address, and just go in and steal this stamp." And he doesn't really do a great, 2 cents. Yeah, and he's like, it's only a short drive, and he doesn't even do a great job of describing where the stamp would be or how to even identify it. He's just like, go to steal a stamp, and I mean, this guy has got stupid written all over him. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Both of them at this point. It's like, how does Ray think this is a good idea, that this is going to work? Of all the people, it's like, you could have asked Nikki to do this. Maybe he loves her, doesn't want her to get, possibly in trouble. But it's like, this of all your parolees is the guy that you're going to pick to do this.
Well, and it is. All right, keep going. I can't defend any of this.
I know it's bad. So he takes
it's a plan worse than I would make.
Yeah. So he takes the paper, and that night he goes driving off, and he's trying to roll a joint in the front seat while he's talking to this guy on the phone. He's like, are you high? He's like, no. And he's coughing, and he ends up dropping the joint while he's trying to light it, catches fire, and he loses the paper with the name and the address, goes out the window. He pulls over, he tries to find it, and he gives up after like barely a minute. And he's like, oh, it's Eden. Oh, I'll find it. Blah, blah, blah. And he storms off into the car and drives away. He then comes upon a gas station where he goes inside and asks the clerk if he could see the phone book. And the clerk was watching the Gophers game in the back. And, we heard the Gophers from the movie. And from some of the other seasons that's mentioned every once in a while, people liking to watch the Gophers.
All right.
Whatever team they are, I don't even know if they're associated with. They're not a major league team, so I don't know if it's like a college thing or what. But anyway.
Hang on a second. This takes everything to a screeching halt.
Why?
What is the connection of the Gophers to the Fargo?
Other characters, be it in the movie or in the in various TV seasons, will every once in a while mention that they're busy because they want to watch the Gophers game on TV.
Examples.
In the movie, when William H. Macy's sitting down, with his son and his wife, and he's asking his son about, how's the Gophers game? Are you gonna go to the Gophers game? Because he's trying to, because that was part of his alibi, because he needed to make sure his son wasn't going to be home the next day or that night whenever the kidnapping and stuff happened. And then we've seen that again in season 3, and hear about it again in season 2. which we haven't watched yet. But it's like it's just a thing, and I
Okay.
So
I'm not being like an accuser. I'm just saying.
So the clerk wants to see the phone book, and it's on a chain, and he shows it to him, and he's flipping through it, and he finds the page that he's looking for, and he rips it out, and the clerk's like, "Hey, now that's a public phone book that doesn't belong to you," and he's getting all worked up about this paper, and he gets in the car and he drives off. Meanwhile, Gloria and her son arrive at their stepfather's house, Ennis's house. It's a small, quaint country house, 2 stories in the middle of nowhere in farmland. And they're
the kind of place you expect to be overrun by zombies.
Yeah, they're sitting down, and apparently it's the kid's birthday, and the stepfather gives him a box. He says, "Here, happy birthday. If you don't like it, the garbage is under the sink." And he opens it, and it's a carving, and it's a really nice carving. I don't know what he carved out of, but it depicts something that we'll find out what it relates to a little later. And so he looks at this, and he's like, "Yeah, I can tell you don't like it." He's like, "No, I really do. It's kind of neat." And she sits, and then Gloria comes up to bring raspberry pie or strawberry pie. He's like, "I told you I don't like strawberry." And she's like, "Okay, then more for us." So they're sitting down, and then the son randomly broaches the topic. He's like, "So is Dale like my new dad now?" And you find out that Gloria and her husband divorced because he went to live with a man. And she's like,
"This show is woke."
Jesus. And so, there's a lot of morons who would say that just because of that. And so, Gloria's like, "Well, no, he's not
calling me a moron, Wonka?" And
then Ennis is like, "Oh, that ain't right. It ain't in the Bible. It ain't gonna be legal or any of that stuff." And the conversation is cut short, and she's like, "How about another beer, Pop?" And he's like, "Now you're talking.
Now you're talking my language.
Now you're talking my language." So she goes to get him a beer, and they have a couple drinks.
That's why I love Ennis.
Yes, and then they leave.
Shut up! I want a drink.
And while they're gone,
someone shows up, and
this is a great way they shot this. So Maurice LeFay pulls up to an intersection, and he sees the sign for which way he has to turn. Oh, Eden Valley, that's it. And he drives towards Eden Valley, and they do this weird. It's like a crossfade where he's like a silhouette of him, where there's a backlight, and he's just getting high and blowing smoke out, and it has this weird soundtrack. And we get what's about to happen. And Ennis wakes up, and he's fallen asleep in the living room watching TV, and he's watching some sci-fi show or movie. And he gets up to go into the kitchen to get another beer. We then cut back to Gloria and her son riding in the car, and their son realizes that he left the present behind. And he's like, "No, we got to go back and get it now." And she's like, "Why? We can get it tomorrow." He's like, "No, I don't want Grandpa to think that, I didn't like it or anything. We have to go back and get it." She's like, "Oh, okay." So they turn around to go back, and Gloria notices that the front door is open. So she tells him to stay in the car. She goes inside, and she sees the house is completely ransacked. And she doesn't have her gun on her, so she picks up this trophy that looks like a golden rocket, and she picks it up off the table.
I know, I want one of those.
Yes.
For Christmas.
She snoops around, and she's like, real nervous, and she goes into the kitchen, and she finds Ennis has been duct taped to this chair. His mouth seems to be frozen shut. His eyes are open, and he's dead, and the freezer is still open. And she's like, "Oh, geez." And then her son suddenly shows up. And she's like, "No, get back in the car." She puts him in the car, and she's like, call Donnie on the radio, tell him to bring the state troopers. She's like, "Stay here. I got to go look around." She's like, "But Mom, no, I'm chief of police. I got to do this." So she goes inside, and she hears some thumping upstairs, and she goes around and clears the house, and we don't really find out whatever made the noise.
Well, no, but one of the things, like, in terms of the cinematography is that, there was they had, well, not the soundtrack, but in terms of the cinematography, and yes, there were sound effects. Sorry, Gundel Wintelbaum, I love you like a brother, and I'm going to highlight this. I'm just going to take you off screen for a second, because it is inappropriate for what I'm about to say. So, no, like, when you see the Scoot McNairy, and I think that is with Gloria smelling the breath of Scoot McNairy. Like, I think that is, she got the scent.
Right, because he's high as a kite.
Well, and he's obviously huffing and puffing.
Right,
he's a smoker.
Yeah.
So, like, all of that, I think that was stylistically informative. Who was it? I think Lemon said, sounds like Scotty was delighted. Yeah.
And then
I was in Kansas City for fucking 4 weeks.
And when longer, like 6 weeks, and then shut up, crime. When Gloria's searching the house, there's this very odd guttural type, some language of some kind. I'm not sure what it is, and it's really unsettling. Like all this weird. I can't do it. But it's really really eerie, and I'm like, that is really weird. And so she keeps searching the house and doesn't find anything, and the cops eventually show up, as does her ex-husband and Dale. And she's like, yeah, you better not have him go to school the next day. And so he takes his son.
Well, don't give him a day off.
Right. And so they're like, give him a day off. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ray and Nikki we find out that their hobby is competitive bridge. And that's what some of the titles are based on. The title of the pilot of this one, or the first episode of this season, is The Law of Vacant Places, which relates to bridge. And don't ask me, I know nothing about the game of bridge. I just know that these are what the titles are referring to. And it's competitive bridge, which just sounds like such a Minnesota type thing. And to see Nikki is like super into this. And I'm like, okay. And they're having their big bridge game, trying to win. And this is how they're planning to make money. And they go back home to celebrate. And they get in the bathtub.
Well, that's the fucking crazy thing about this entire situation is that, okay, so we got Nikki and we got Ray. Mm-hmm. Ray is and as we've already covered, he's a parole officer. Nikki is a con. She doesn't like that term. And they are dating actively. I believe that they are in love. I believe in their love.
I do too.
And everything just sort of sprouts out of this. There's no malice. It's just bad decision making.
Yeah, so they're in the bathtub and they're being romantic and they got candles lit. And then they hear somebody come in because we saw that Maurice was staking out the house waiting for... he must have been following, because here's the thing. Ray doesn't live here. Nikki does. Because they're trying to keep this on the down low. So... I don't know why.
Well, it's a Corvette. It's not hard to find that Corvette.
He's probably driving. Yeah, that's probably true. So he's there. He barges into the bathroom and seems to be completely ignoring the fact that they're both in the bathtub. He just sits down. He's like, man, if you would know the kind of night I had, I did it for you. I got the stamp, but man, that we might have to cover our tracks maybe, but I'm pretty sure I covered mine. And man, are you sure this guy's your brother? I mean, man, he's really old. And Nikki's completely lost because she has no idea what Ray has done. And Ray's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I went down to Eden Valley. And he's like, no, Prairie. Eden. He gets out of the bathtub and puts on a bath towel. He's like, Eden Prairie. I told you to go to Eden Prairie.
Eden Prairie. They got these new cookies at the cookie stand. They're delicious. You got to try them.
And he's like, man, it doesn't seem like your brother has very much money, and I hope this guy. It's funny because he acknowledges that the guy's his brother, and then the next sentence he says, "I hope this guy wasn't a friend of yours because I'm pretty sure he's dead." And Nikki starts piecing it together, and she's like, "Babe, did you hire this guy to break into your brother's house and steal the stamp?"
No, I blackmailed him.
I blackmailed him. And he's getting upset. He's like, "Well, man, I'm gonna have to skip town for a couple days. I'm gonna need some money now. I know you're
$5,000.
He's like, I'm gonna need the money." And he's like, and Ray puts his hands on him to try and get to stop him, and that pisses him off. And so Maurice pulls out a gun. He's like, "Hey, man, I could really, fuck your life up pretty bad. So I need the money because I need to skip town for a while. I'll give you till tomorrow." And then that's when Nikki decides to play a game, and she steps up out.
This is when I fall in love with Nikki.
Yes, she stands up out of the bathtub.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. You may remember her from such films as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, or
you already ran out of things to remember. I know her mostly from
Fargo season 3.
Yes. So she stands up stark naked, and even
no
Ray,
nudity if you're looking. No spoilers. It's all like you get to see her bum, but
and Ray is like totally looking at her too, and she's like, "Hun," going like this. He's like, "Huh?" She's like, and then she says it out loud, "The gun." And Maurice is so stoned that he doesn't put it together either, and so Ray quickly tries to lunge for the gun, but they fight, and Maurice gets a hold of it again anyway. And he's like, "That's it. You're going to get me my money. You have until tomorrow to get me my money, or I'm telling everybody, robbing your own brother, that's real low. Like, this guy's got standards." I mean, you could tell obviously from the crime scene that it wasn't a quick death for Mr. Stussy. It was a very bizarre death. Like,
well, no, he gets his mouth and nose super glued shut.
Right, and this is like a very, I mean, it's not like this stoner just docked him on the head, as being an old man. He like took his time kind of.
Yeah, taped him to the chair.
Right, so the idea that he has standards and it's like, oh, torturing an old man and killing him, but no big deal. But robbing your brother, your own brother. So that was funny. And so he starts walking away, and Nikki immediately starts counting out loud. And at first we're not sure what she's counting. We realize she's counting steps. And Ray's an idiot, so he's not putting together what she's trying to do. And she gets a robe on, and she runs into the kitchen, and she pulls out a wrench or a screwdriver. And I don't know what the temperatures are like in Minnesota in the summer, but they have an air conditioner. And she's trying to pry the thing out, still counting. And she asks Ray to look outside, and we keep cutting to Maurice as he's heading down the stairs, and he gets his shirt caught on the railing, and he pulls it, and he looks at the holes, like, God damn it. And then he stops on another landing to light another cigarette, and he's having trouble lighting it. And once she finishes counting, she says, "Hon, is he out there yet?" And he looks out, and he's not there yet. And he walks out, he steps there, and Ray finally puts it together. He's like, "Oh, yeah, right now, hon." And she's trying to push the thing out of the hole, and she can't do it. And so then Ray just kicks it with his bare foot. It falls out. You have this great POV shot from the air conditioner as it's flipping in slow-mo down the way.
It kind of looked, it looked like Mama from the end of Dread.
Yeah, and it's following down, and then it just suddenly goes back to fast play, or real speed.
Anyway, the guy's dead. It like schmucked on the face.
And you can't identify him as head. He's done. And immediately...
Teeth all over the place.
Immediately, Nikki calls 911 to say there was an accident with the AC. She snaps her fingers at Ray to, get the hell out of here. Tells him, don't forget the stamps. He's like, okay. She's like, go down the back stairs. And she says, oh, the landlord, I've actually been trying to bug him for weeks. That's on paper. That's on record already. And an accident. He's like, oh, yeah. And he starts piecing it together. It's like, oh, I love you. And they leave. And so that's what they did that night. And I'm thinking, I like how she immediately, after piecing together what Ray did, she immediately jumps to first-degree murder to deal with this stoner, which between Ray and the stoner, you would think that Ray could easily tell whatever story he wants because, hey, you failed your piss test. Hey, I didn't tell you to do jack shit because he doesn't have the piece of paper anymore. So it's like, but no, let's just jump to first-degree murder to deal with this. So he's not, so even it's like, is this the smartest plan? No, but it is kind of cunning that it actually worked.
Well, and I do want to get more into that, but we've had a lot of chats.
Well, we can start listening to the chats. We got a lot more to talk about, so.
I still do want to say hello, an extra special hello to Gundel Whittlebaum. I don't know, man. I need your email address again. You know mine, right?
Strawberry pie is kind of pie. Fruit and pie is normal, and strawberries are tasty, but strawberry pie is just odd.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I don't think I've ever actually had a strawberry pie. I've had
but I've had a blueberry pie, and I think that's just as strange.
I think I've had that once. All right.
You've had blueberry pie?
We can move on to the next one. Yeah.
Pleasant Valley Pickers. Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. And PvP says competitive bridge.
Yes, they were in the lobby of like a casino hotel in the ballroom, and there were all these tables of people playing bridge. and they're just yeah. Apparently, it's a thing. I didn't know that. I don't think they made
Well,
it up.
did you ever read Moonraker?
It's been a while since I've read that one.
They have competitive bridge. They do the entire. It's the same thing that they do for Baccarat in Casino Royale. They do that for bridge in Moonraker. It's insane.
Okay. So yes, bridge being the card game. Plus, yeah, they competitive bridge. I didn't know neither. Lemon Pie says, I don't think I've ever had strawberry pie. Yeah, you and me both. Pleasant Valley Picker says competitive bridge is as exciting as watching paint dry or grass growing. Probably. Oh, Phantom Organist is here and alive tonight. Are there pancakes yet? Oh.
Well, I thought his name was Orgamist.
Maybe it could be both. I don't have pancakes yet, though.
Scrolling. Something about a red-headed girlfriend. And a compliment for Kat. PleasantValleyPicker.ca says, I'm impressed by how much Kat can talk and say intelligent stuff.
Well, thank you, PvP.
Delightful.
Very delightful.
So where were we?
Oh, so meanwhile, on that same night, Cy calls Emmett at home and says, "Hey, there's a guy here. You know the clicks and buzzers." He's like, "Yeah." Oh, Ermintrout here. He's like, "No, he's somebody else. I'm not really. I think he's the guy though that gave us. He said he just got in on a long flight. I said it was late, but he just wants to get this over with, go back to the airport or whatever." And so Emmett's like, "Okay." So Emmett leaves, and his wife stops him. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Hun, you're wearing your inside slippers, your inside shoes." And he's like, "Oh, of course." Just like
that's going to be a big thing, because in the first scene,
yeah,
the guy who was taken incorrectly was wearing his slippers.
Yeah, he's wearing slippers.
Anyway, you got to watch the show, guys. You got to watch the show.
So Emmett's like, "Oh, right, okay." So he gets his shoes on and he leaves, and he goes down to their offices, and he sees one of my all-time favorite character in this entire series of Fargo has just been introduced, and he's sitting there, and it's played by David Thewlis. Fun story.
Oh.
David said he was a fan of the first two seasons, and that compared to other television, he watched Fargo and regarded it as like when you sit in a nice sitting room with a nice cup of tea to watch something really good. And he loved it. And when he got the call that they wanted him for season 3, he was so excited. But I love that, hearing stories like that. But so we meet him, and he's playing. He's talking to Cy, and he's British, and he's got a bad haircut, really bad teeth, strong.
I want that haircut.
Strong accent. And Cy and Emmett are there. He's like, "Yeah, so we called." He's like, "Yes, I left a number, and when there's a number, you call." And he's like, "Yeah, we did, but clicks and buzzers. Yeah, just clicks and buzzers. We didn't get nothing." And he's like, And they say, "Well, we'll get you paid now. We're very happy. We're in the black now, so thank you for helping us out." When none of the banks were lending back then. And he's like, "Investment." And he's like, "Come again? You said that was a loan." "No, it was an investment. We're investors." And he's like, and they kind of act like both Cy and Emmett are looking at each other like they don't know what this means. He's like, you didn't think it was odd that I lent you $1 million with no collateral during the recession when no one else was lending? And they look at each other again. They're like, well, you can check the loan. Our lawyers or you could check the paperwork. Our lawyers got it. The contract. It was a loan. He's like,
this is quite possibly the most Valley Girl description of a television show that I have ever heard.
It definitely.
You're not even giving me a chronology. You're basically telling me about all the awesome parts. And that guy's sad. And oh my God. And then that person did that.
What I like about this character.
Can you tell me about the plot, Catherine?
Well, like I said, he's saying, "Look, this was a loan. This was not a loan. This was an investment." And they're like, "Well, but our guys say it was a loan." "No, it was an investment. But we have the contract. It was an investment." And the entire time they're going back, Emmett and Cy, because they're morons, They're just
Well, these two gentlemen, we got Emmett and Cy. They had previously accepted a loan for $1 million with no collateral. The only thing that they accepted was that someone was willing to give them $1 million. They did not vet their investors. They did not vet the people that they got the loan from. They had legal contracts drawn up, but the people that they drew those legal contracts up with couldn't have given two shits about what those... A contract is a piece of paper.
Right, like Ehrmantraut drew it up.
As VM Varga says. And as the lawyer of Stussy and... What's the mustache man?
Cy Phelps.
Cy. I love that actor. Anyway.
He's great. He's really funny in this season, too.
Michael
Stuhlbarg.
Yes, Michael Stuhlbarg. Anyway, I really liked him in Men in Black 3.
Yeah, so basically Varga just tells him we're partners now or whatever, and you'll be seeing me in the morning, and he leaves, and Emmett and Cy are just kind of looking at each other, not really knowing what to make of it. And so the next day they go to their lawyer, and they're telling him what happened, and the lawyer's like, hold on, stop. Let me just sum up how many different levels of stupid this is. And he's like, what? You took a loan from somebody. You didn't ask me about it. You didn't vet the guy. You didn't do any of these things like you just pointed out. And he's like, well, and then they try and push back on it. Like, well, we have the name, we have the corporate ID number, we have the phone, all this stuff, and we just got the clicks and buzzers. And you didn't call me when this was going on, and when this problem was, and then he's like, and then so they give him the name and the number, and they leave, and the lawyer decides.
Well, no, but Emmett also says, why don't you reel him in on the Facebooks? Because it's 2010.
Right.
Like the era is important. And
yes.
So being able to use the internet, and people don't know how to use the internet in 2010, especially older people.
Yes, that's a running theme in this season as well.
It's the technology. It's when...
Right, and it's odd that... And that's another thing which speaks to the stupidity of them, is that they made a deal with this guy. They have the corporate ID number, but they're saying... Oh, don't look up his corporate ID number. Try and find him through Facebook. It's like, wait, what? It's like, that's your plan? It's like, you don't want to find the broker, Ehrmantraut, and see if he knew something else about... No. And so they just push on him really hard, and then they leave. And this lawyer, Irv, he's an old man. His wife is there, or presumably, I assume is his wife, working in the office behind him. And so he decides to run the name. So he's typed it in on the search bar. He doesn't understand what to do. And his wife's like, click the enter button. He's like, the what? Click the enter. So she comes in and helps him. And they see there's only one search result, VM Varga, and they click on it, and it loads a web page asking he's like, what do I do? She's like, don't click on, and he's like, it sees like download information. So he goes to click on it. She's like, no, and he clicks it, and then their webcam is activated, and you see them as they're looking at the computer screen. A picture is taken, and then his computer shuts off. He's like, I didn't do nothing. I didn't touch nothing. So then she goes into the back to check her computer. Hers is off. He's like, what about the power? And she looks, and I noticed how she looks specifically at the lights that are in his office. She's like, well, the lights are still on in your office. And she's like, oh, I'll call that IT guy that such and such knows, his son, to help them. So it's like, on the one hand, this guy's a smart lawyer. He has common sense when it comes to being a lawyer, like how stupid Cy and Emmett were to make this deal. But he doesn't even know, like he typed the letters into the search bar, but he didn't understand how to initiate the search. Okay, so to your point.
Well, like, come on. Have you ever tried to introduce, technical...
Like, it's the first time he's had it,
Well, I think that the visual representation of that man's computer was on point. It was covered in dust.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't care about it. He never used it. And the only reason he was investigating it is because Emmett said, get him on the Facebook. Reel him in.
So then we cut back to Emmett and Cy, and they're driving in Cy's car, and he drives a Hummer, which is ridiculous.
That'll come into things
Cy
later.
that Cy is driving a Hummer of all things says a lot more about him. So he's driving
a diminutive man,
and Emmett is asking him, "You think I was too hard on him?" He's like, "Oh, Irv, well, no, you weren't." He's like, "No, Ray, when I turned him down," and he's like, "Oh no, you need to put your foot down. You know what? I mean, he's a loser." He's like, "No, my brother's not a loser." He's like, "Well, he's doing a pretty darn good imitation," and he basically lays it out for Emmett and says, "Your brother. It's not about if you gave him that money, then he would want interest and more and more. What he wants is your life. He envies this. He's trying to guilt trip you about this stamp, even though he's the one who asked for the swap to begin with, and." That's what he wants from you, and it's never going to stop, and you just need to accept that and move on. And Emmett kind of listens to what Cy is saying and just kind of accepts it. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. We're kind of done with this." And so meanwhile, Ray is back at work, and he unplugs his computer, and then he messes with the cable to make it look like there's something wrong with it, which surprisingly...
No, he doesn't. He actually had a difficulty with his computer. There was no reason for him to go in and hang out with Scott.
There was a reason for him to go in and hang out with Scott. Remember,
why?
Because he wanted to use Scott's computer to look up if they listed a cause of death for Maurice, and he didn't want that on his computer.
Okay, but I thought he had Berman.
He says that, but you see that he's actually is the one pulling the cables and messing with it, and that's his story.
Missed that.
Which is funny because it's like, okay, Ray's been a real idiot up to this point, but he was smart enough to realize that he can't type the guy's name in on his own computer because it'll look suspicious and potentially in the investigation in case there's any blowback. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird.
But that's what's so weird because, like, why wouldn't he be able to look into his own?
I know, but that's the thing.
Client.
That's why he went into Scott's office, and he even tells Scott while he's in there. He's like, "Yeah, so my parolee's kind of missing, and I don't know." He's like, "Well, then put a bolo out. What do you need? What do you need me to do everything for you?" And he gets to talking about, the parolee and how hot he is and this kind of stuff.
You want to cool your jets for a second?
Sure.
We got a little DJ Play Nice. He's kicking around.
Yeah.
It's good to see DJ Play Nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's also nice to know that pleasantbalorpicker.ca has
pancake mix in the kitchen.
That's what I heard.
Bad Haircut would have been a great name for an 80s techno band.
No argument.
You don't know how to install the Google. I'm boycotting Google.
And then that's it. Like, I'm fine.
Oh, okay. So, meanwhile, we have Varga riding in a black Cadillac. You got Andy Yu as Mimo is driving, wearing his red tracksuit with his earbuds on, and driving behind them in this 53-foot long black big rig tractor trailer is Yuri.
Oh my God, the fucking gear shift on that shit.
The gear shift is amazing.
Oh my God, it looked like a BDSM dildo. It was so angry.
And he's got this, it's not exactly a whip. It's
it's like a, what do you call it? Like a strike?
Because it has a handle on both sides and it's just curved, but
it's leather and it's very short. Oh.
Yeah, I
forget, but it's not a good time. It's not a good time.
You have a super close up on the gear shift and on the whip as the car is driving, and he's wearing like this, almost looks kind of like a varsity jacket with a light gray wool zip underneath it, and he's got like Adidas track pants and track shoes on, and they pull up to the entrance to this parking lot, and it says Stussy Lots, and that's like the first time we realize what Emmett's line of business is. We haven't been told yet. And Varga, the back window unrolls, and Varga looks up, and the guy, the tenant looks out of the window. He's like, "Is that truck with you?" He's like, "Surmise, huh? We arrived together, so you surmise that we are here together." He's like, "Well, are you? Well, he's here, aren't you?" He's like, yeah, we're together. Well, we're going to park here. No, you can't park the truck. That's against city ordinance. Oh, well, I have permission from Mr. Sussy. We could park here. He's like, who? Your employer. The name that is on the sign that you stand above, Mr. Sussy. And he's like, huh? He's like, we're done here.
Yeah.
We're done
Once
here.
he had finally reached the level of stupid, he was like, there's no negotiating with this fucking jellyfish.
I love this season. So he just, the truck, they pull in and they park, and he calls Cy at the office, and Cy's like, no, yeah, they got permission and all that. Oh, but you didn't hear that from Emmett. We don't want to have any, foreknowledge. And he's like, huh? Foreknowledge, knowledge before the fact. So he hangs up.
But so this is also something. This is also something that brings it back from. Oh my God! Basic Fargo storytelling is that it's not necessarily about machinations. It's about mismanaged ideas. How do we benefit in the short round or in the short time? It all like, I feel that this is so much better than the last season, in which I mean the subsequent season. They tried to make it about intelligent people making moves based on strategy with one element of chaos. And this season is, hey, that guy has the same last name as us.
Yeah.
It weaves in so much better this time. And also, it's cold. And I expect Fargo to be cold.
So Cy goes from his office and to go see Emmett, and Emmett's reading the newspaper about Sussy's murder, and he's talking about how, man, think about it, this ain't the Minnesota I grew up in. This old man being murdered, and he mentioned, he goes as far as to mention Sussy, Eden Valley, and he and Cy are too stupid to think for a second that maybe, just maybe, because it's kind of odd that some junkie may have gone in and killed, or whatever. He doesn't think there's anything odd about this.
Even Sarah Connor knew that. Yeah,
and he tells him, and Cy says, well, the Varga guy, well, he's parked this truck at this lot, and he's like, huh? And he's like, the one under the freeway. And he's like, well, isn't that against ordinance? Like, why did we buy that lot again? He's like, well, you wanted to buy it because you thought in the long term we could turn them into condos. He's like, oh yeah, we should call what's his name? We should call some guy about. Oh yeah, we could talk about that. And he's like, oh yeah, see you, PvP. He's like, yeah, we can call somebody about that.
Don't forget to wipe from the back.
And Cy is clearly worried about this, and Emmett doesn't seem to grasp it fully yet. And so then Cy leaves, and meanwhile we catch up with Gloria's Gloria at the police station, and this is crazy. So they didn't say why this is, but the police station she works at is in the public library. And they haven't, and you meet the new police chief from the county, played by Shea Wiggum.
Fucking love that actor, love this character, and absolutely agree with him. I am on board. I love Gloria, but I love the new sheriff. Like, what's his name? Do we have the new chief name?
His name is Mo Damick.
Damick?
Yes.
Janet. I love this guy. I love the actor, and I'm looking forward to this juxtaposition.
Yeah, and he asks, so where's your computer room? He's like, oh, we have the boxes. Yeah. Why are you called computer boxes? Well, we haven't set them up.
The computers are in them.
The old way works fine. He's like, what do you mean? Well, I just send the telex. He's like, do you know what year it is? Nobody uses telex anymore. He's like, oh, that's why nobody gets back to me. And he's like, okay, that's it. This needs to stop. Look, I've absorbed the job, and this is it. And she's like, and she kind of rolls her eyes, and says, well, I got stuff to do. And he's like, well, I'm just going to pretend that you didn't just mouth off to me like my teen daughter. And he says,
absolutely correctly.
Yes, he does. And he says, look, I'm going to cut you some slack because your father was murdered. No, stepfather. Okay, I'll give you a few days for grieving, but when you come back, you and I are going to have a conversation about what's what. and we're going to update. We're going to bring things into the 21st century. It's like, but the old way works fine. It's like, what? And Donnie is sitting there at the table. He's like, yeah, if we ever need to check a record, we just call what's his name over in the neighboring county or whatever. And it's like, and this admittedly, Gloria was shown to be very smart this season, but this in particular, I don't understand how she doesn't understand why they don't get back to her because she's using telex. It's like, it boggles the mind.
I think that was sarcastic.
I don't know about that, but
I think that when she said, oh, that's why no one ever writes back, I think that was sarcastic.
I didn't think so, because I think
people would have been in communication. They would have been in communication.
Yeah, so he's like, yeah, we're going to modernize everything, and that's that.
Yes. Accurately.
She had meanwhile been trying to solve a mystery, because when she was searching her stepfather's house, she found a secret compartment under the floor, and there was
with a box of books,
a locked box that was dusty as hell. Like nobody's touched this in ages. And she opened it, and she found that it contained these like nickel and dime sci-fi stories.
Thaddeus Mobley.
By Thaddeus Mobley, and then it included a cutout newspaper article from 1980 showing Thaddeus Mobley winning a prize, the same prize that we saw her pick up as a weapon when she was moving through the house, the gold rocket.
I want one of those.
Yeah, it does look really cool, saying that he had, sci-fi writer wins it. She's like, I'm not sure what this is. And so she and her son end up going to the mortuary, and they're talking to the guy, and he's like, did he have any next of kin? Like, we're the next of kin.
We are.
He's like,
what a fucking asshole that guy was.
I mean, outside of the state, other than him. And he's like, no. He's like, well, did you tell his wife? And she's like, she's dead. And he's like, oh, that's right. Yeah, she's buried in 21J. Didn't really know much about your stepdad. He's kind of an asshole. I'm like, oh my God. And then
he was, though.
Yeah, he was. And she asked him, hey, do you by chance know if his name may have been Thaddeus Mobley? Because he moved here. I was born in 1976. He moved here in 1980, married my mom in 1982. Thaddeus Mobley being out of Los Angeles. He's like, no, I don't really know much other than he was an asshole. So, and he gets out this big book to go through what type of urn they want to select. And so we have this mystery. And the reason I mentioned Eden Valley as being another, like you mentioned Eden Prairie as being where Mallrats was filmed. I mentioned Eden Valley as being significant in pop culture because that is where Mystery Science Theater was filmed. The original was filmed in Eden Valley at the local TV station there. And so we have these sci-fi, cheesy B sci-fi stuff. He was watching sci-fi on the TV when he went into the kitchen and got ambushed. And so I'm like, okay, I like that kind of parallel there. But we don't yet know what the mystery is behind that. Meanwhile, we cut back to Varga, and he shows up at Sussy Lots. He walks inside, and it's funny how Emmett sees him, and he tries to hide by standing behind the shutter, but it only covers his head because of how tall or how short the drape is. And I'm not even sure what the logic. It's like you pull it down so you can only see the lower half, but not the upper half. And so of course Varga can see him, that he's standing there, and Varga's there with Yuri and Mimo, and they're just kind of hanging out at the front. And Emmett's like, he smiles and comes up there, and Varga introduces himself and basically says, so yeah, we're going to be setting up shop in here. And the secretary is told to call Sai, and she does. And Sai shows up, and he sees that Varga is, Varga's there, and he looked into the back room for all this extra unused office space, and he nods to Yuri like, this is it. Or not to Yuri, he nods to Mimo. And Mimo just stands there listening to his music, and he's like, and then all of these guys come in there with dollies just loaded with boxes of stuff, and they're moving all the boxes into the back room, and Emmett's getting overwhelmed, and Varga just takes him into his office to tell him how it's going to be, like we're partners. And Sai shows up, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. The secretary, she's like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Feltz, I tried to stop them. And when he sees Varga in the back, he's like, oh, great, that IT equipment is here. You remember when I said we were going to have the IT expansion? And she's like, no. And so he goes into Emmett's office, and Vargas basically says, look, we're partners now. And I'm sorry, you Americans think from watching too much TV that you could just change or cancel a deal. You can't. We're partners, and this is the way it is. And he's like, well, why do you want with us anyway? He's like, well, I like your company, Mr. Stussy. You deal exclusively in cash. and you have a lot of supply and never-ending demand because you're a parking lot company, and you have easy for lots of unverified income and size. Like, oh, you wait just a minute. If you start goosing those, we have lots of books, a lot of strict accounting, and you start goosing those numbers, Mr. Fargo. And he's like, look, you just need to accept this, and when it's over, you'll be billionaires, on paper at least. Now I'm going to be gone for a couple days. I got some things to do, and with the surveillance state and all, there's some like a slander about the capitalist surveillance state. And he says, well, Yuri and Mimo are going to be here to make sure things are going smoothly, and he leaves. And now Cy and Emmett are like even more worried because they don't know what they're going to do. And later that night, when Irv, their lawyer, gets off work, he goes into the parking garage, and Yuri is standing next to his car, and he's like, you from the old country, yes? No, I'm from Ukraine. Oh, you're from the mom. And he starts talking about the history of how and strangely, the lawyer starts responding to this rather than telling him to get lost or I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, yeah, my mama, she was from the old country when the Cossacks came in and ran them all down like dogs.
Minnesota, nice.
Yeah, the Cossacks ran her and her people down like dogs and raped them and killed them and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm from the old country. Well, that's when he finds out, yes. And he's like, and Yuri's like, that's me. I am the Cossack from the old country. And then he grabs him, and Mimo grabs him, and they throw him over the parking garage to his death. And it was odd because it's like, we saw in the beginning in East Berlin, the name that was on the paperwork was a guy named Yuri, who was supposed to be 20 years old at the time. And this takes place 22 years later. And so we have Yuri here, who's older, not 20, but 20 years older. Maybe maybe there's a connection there. And he's telling him that he's a Cossack. Like when Irv told him that his mother was actually run down by the Cossacks, which would be like centuries, his grandmother or whatever run down. And Yuri's like, well, that's me. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. And then they just throw him off.
Well, you already know.
Right, but I'm asking, what do you think of this? Like, what do you make of Yuri just randomly, and the fact that the lawyer is engaging with him at all? I thought this was very strange. Even on it just seems bizarre to me.
I don't think it seems that bizarre.
That is kind of odd that the lawyer would engage with him like that, rather than saying, what are you talking about? What do you mean where I'm from? Like, you literally just saw me rounding the corner, Because he does tell him that he also knows he Googled Varga and tried to look him up.
That's the entire reason.
Right, and that's something Varga told Emmett. He's like, yo, I'm sorry about your lawyer, but, we can't have people looking into things.
Well, I was thinking about what makes a Fargo story. And one of the things that makes a Fargo story is Europeans.
Yeah.
You need a European.
Mm-hmm.
We got Gaetano in season 4. We got
Ole in 5.
Ole in 5. Who's in 1?
I don't know if there was a European in 1, but it's Scandinavian.
Well, the deaf guy. I figured the deaf guy was.
I don't know. I didn't think so.
Anyway. Well, I don't know. Maybe he was just deaf. Anyway. So what I'm saying is that there is an extrapolation about a foreigner that happens in a Fargo story. I've been trying to figure out what makes a Fargo story, and especially after watching season 4, because I don't consider that one.
Well, I think one thing that definitely is a significant standout factor of a Fargo show is it involves dimwits making stupid decisions or spiral out of control.
Yeah, like, at least mistakes.
Right.
And that's why, like, maybe that's why I didn't...
Like, Emmett and Cy were desperate. They needed a loan. They didn't care who they got it from. They just needed the money.
Right. And that's why I'm kind of mad at season 4, is because everyone was so conniving.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably the dimmest person in season 4 was probably the Jason Schwartzman character. Because he was trying to do this imitation. He thought he was really badass, and he didn't really have a handle on anything.
Yeah. But like Fargo needs hapless. It needs hapless. And I love the fact that you are confronted in this season so far, in the first two episodes, by two brothers, one who is painted and demonstrably hapless with Ray. But Emmett is like, he does a good job at covering it up, but every now and then he gets to be a little hapless.
I get the sense that it's because of their success and their money that he thinks he's a lot smarter than he actually is. And Cy, I mean, Cy is a ridiculous character. He drives a Hummer, and we'll get to one of the more ridiculous things that Cy says and does in a bit.
Oh, but I think Cy and Ray are, or Cy and Emmett. I think they're a couple.
Well, Cy is happily married as well.
Well, I wouldn't say happily.
Well, Cy is.
Cy is.
We haven't met Cy's wife yet.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet.
No, but Cy's married, and so they're having a good time. So anyway.
To a woman?
Yes, and so basically we see that Varga's up to some shady shit. His company Narwhal doesn't even have any traces. He basically told Emmett and Cy to their faces that he killed their lawyer and is now intimidating them. Yeah, you better not look into me. And he's leaving apparently a Cossack and Mimo behind to watch things at the office and whatever they're doing in the back there. And presumably there's the files, maybe the books from the company or something's in the boxes. I don't know what's in the boxes. And so that's where we are with them. Meanwhile, we go back to Ray, and he goes to visit Nikki back home, and he's walking into the apartment building, and he sees this guy sweeping all the blood off the front, the walk, and he kind of pauses to look at it. He's like this isn't really him, and he's clearly still bothered by this, not just because of the practical reason that they need to make sure they get away with it still, but also because he doesn't really feel great about what they did, and he goes upstairs and he's trying to tell Nikki this. And Nikki's just not listening to him, and she's talking about finding a sponsor for their next competitive bridge tournament. And he's like, "Hun, I'm trying to tell you that we're not really out of the woods yet." She's like, "Come here." He's like, "What?" And then she slaps him. He's like, "What'd you do that for?" "I'm telling you, we're not." And he's like, "Your chi is off." "Huh? Your chi. You're not settled right. You need to settle this stuff with your brother once and for all to be done with." Like, she doesn't even... She's like, "Look, the guy's a dipshit." And she says he was going to come back and kill us. And which, no, because there was plenty of other things they could have done to get out of that. But she just doesn't care, and he is clearly still shaken by it, which is a difference between these two, and we'll see how that plays out. But she does talk him into, you need to make amends with your brother, and so they drive with the Corvette over to Emmett's house that night, and he's like, "Okay, I'll go in and talk to Emmett, and you stay here in the car." She's like, "Okay." So he gets out of the car and he knocks on the door, and Emmett answers it, and he's like, "Oh, who died?" And I laughed so hard. That's so great. "Who died?" He's like, "What? Nobody." He's like, "Oh, I just thought because it was."
Well, it was 10:30.
I still think that. Every time I see that line in this episode, I just laugh hysterically for like 5 minutes. The way Ewan delivers the line, "Who died?" And like, that's how bad his relationship is with his brother, and how much he wouldn't even think twice about it. Like, their relationship basically consists of Ray showing up and hitting him up for money. And so he and Emmett go to talk outside, and they're talking, and he's kind of making up with him, letting bygones be
earnestly he is.
Yeah, and it's a very earnest, honest thing, and he's surprised because Ray's, yes, he did kill a man, but he never would have thought to do that if Nikki didn't initiate that action. Whereas now he's honestly made up with him, but we see the whole time they're having this conversation, Nikki has snuck into the house. She's gone.
Well, that was a plan between Nikki and Ray.
Right, because he thought that he was going to try and make up with his brother first, and if that didn't work, then he would send her in. But he genuinely makes up with his brother, but he doesn't realize that Nikki apparently misinterpreted and thought that was supposed to be a diversion. So she snuck into the house, gone upstairs, and the stamp is no longer framed in the portrait behind the desk. Instead, it's a picture of a donkey. And
a burro.
Yeah, burro. She's like, and then she's like upset by this. So then she rummages in his, breaks open his little, desk drawers, and she finds a receipt for a lockbox or a safety deposit box at the bank, a brand new one. And so she thinks that, oh, he must have anticipated this and moved the stamp there. And then she does something very odd. We see her unzip her pants, and it's like,
what does he do? What does she do, Kat?
Here's the thing. Well, this is the thing. We first cut back to Emmett as he's coming back inside. He goes upstairs, and he sees written in blood on the painting of the burrow that says,
"Who's the ass now?"
The ass now. And he opens the drawer that he sees has been rummaged in and sees a bloody tampon in there. And I'm just like, oh my God. And like, this is
why?
I know, it's so bizarre. It's like a way for a personal, disgusting insult. And so when she gets back in the car with Ray, and she's like, so how'd it go? He's like, man, we really connected. I think we did it, babe. I think I got my chi back. We're great. And she's kind of stunned because she didn't think this was actually going to happen. Because she's like, no, you were just diverting it. It's like, no, I think we really did it. And then you hear the siren. She's like, we better go. He's like, why? Come on, Ray, we got to get out of here. Come on, go. To take off. And the next day we see that Ray goes to this restaurant and he's got the Camaro parked up front, and Cy shows up and parks his Hummer. And
oh no.
And Ray he sits something down on his plate and the waitress just comes by and snatches it from him. He's like, hey, I wasn't done yet. And Cy walks in and sits down with him and he's like, here's how it's gonna be. You are never gonna speak to your brother again. And I just laughed out loud again at how ridiculous this is. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not gonna speak. No, you're done. You are never going to get anything from him ever again. You are no longer brothers. It is over.
How dare you use feminine hygiene product as a weapon?
And Ray is clearly like, what? Because clearly Nikki didn't tell him what she did.
No.
And Cy doesn't tell him either.
Also, Nikki's really hot.
And Cy just gets angry and slams his fist on the desk. And the other customers look at him. And he's like, that's it. And he pulls out his wallet, pulls out a roll of bills, flips through them. And he pulls out a 20, flips it out, puts it down. He's like, that's it. That's the last you will ever get from us. And I like how he says, like, us, like it's like you mentioned, like it's a couple or something. And I'm thinking, Cy, you're just the attorney. You're not the like, why do you think that Ray has any incentive to listen to you just because, like, him to say that you're not brothers anymore, you will never speak to your brother again. And I'm like, does he realize just how ridiculous this is? And so Emmett,
you don't believe it?
What?
You don't believe that threat?
Well, no, because Cy doesn't have any real power. He's just the attorney.
You didn't see the previous scene?
Well, yes, where he speculates with Emmett that, he's probably parolee.
No, but when Emmett gets... I think you are misinterpreting this.
Well, no, because Emmett tells him that the stamp was at... that the house... That what actually happened was the housekeeper accidentally broke the frame, and they were getting the frame fixed. And Cy mentions that it's probably illegal for a parolee for a parole agent to date their parolee, so we can blackmail him with that. But Cy didn't tell Ray this when he was talking to him at the diner. He didn't say, if you don't drop this, I'm going to rat you out. He didn't tell him that. So the nature of the threat that Cy is presenting to Ray is simply him. It's not even really a threat because he doesn't phrase it that way. He just says you're never going to talk to him again. He doesn't say, oh, by the way, I know you're dating your parolee. And Ray doesn't know that Cy knows that yet. So it's not really coming off as a threat. It's just coming off as
a statement.
Does Ray know that?
That Cy knows? No.
Right, that's my point. So it's like if Cy's not going to tell him that he knows that, then it's not really coming off as a threat. It's just him making this ridiculous statement, like he has the authority to say you're no longer brothers and that kind of thing, you know?
No, Daniel, there are 2 Obi-Wan Kenobis. Anyway, so
is that where you
when Cy leaves the restaurant in his Hummer, he decides to back into Ray's Corvette twice.
Mm-hmm.
Then he is reckless all over Minnesota.
Yeah, crashes into the car in the parking lot.
Yeah, there's an Asian lady, and she's Oriental. And she's like, my car!
No, Asian. Yeah,
Okay. All right. And so anyway, he gets back, and that's when VM Varga and his henchmen from 2 different Grand Theft Auto video games are helping him move in to the Stussy empire.
Yeah, like I said, we recount these things out of order sometimes because trying to get the exact scene is not always as easy when you're juggling multiple storylines.
But also, I'm having such a fun time. This is a party because I am so happy to be back in Fargo.
Right, and I think that speaks to it because these first 2 episodes feel a lot more Fargo-esque in that we basically have these 2 feuding brothers. Both of them are hapless idiots. One's slightly better at hiding it. One of those hapless idiots has, for his right-hand man, is Cy, a completely ridiculous person who drives a Hummer and is a bit just nutcase. And then the other is a right-hand woman who's a conniving person who's really...
I'm in love with her. I'm in love.
Yes. And then meanwhile, we have this other conniving supervillain type in VM Varga, shady mystery man who runs with a Cossack and
I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid of him.
Who's clearly running some type of financial scam of some sort as he's taking over Stussy Lots. And then we have Gloria who's trying to investigate, is her stepfather Thaddeus Mobley, is that the same thing? Like, why did he have a box of Thaddeus Mobley's books and a prize? Like, notice how the prize was not in the box under the floorboards. It was still on display. And which I wonder if she would go back and look at that, because she didn't do that at the time. Because she's already asking herself if this is the same, if they're one and the same person. But it's like, why would you have the books and the newspaper article in a lockbox under the floorboards, but have the award from the photograph, from the newspaper article, just sitting on the desk? I thought that was a bit interesting. So there's that going on with Gloria having to deal with that, and the fact that her police chief, the new boss, the fact that, first impressions mean a lot. She didn't seem to know about, the telex, that they didn't think computers were useful. Their jail is in a library, and the broom closet is the holding cell. It's like, so clearly there's going, like you mentioned, there's going to be friction there. So we have these neat 3 sources of colliding Fargo storylines that feel very Fargo-esque, and that we're back. I mean,
but I think that it's all, like, I can see how it's all going to tumble into a vortex, because we got some Stussies.
Yeah.
And then we got the parolee who gets the air conditioner on his head.
Yeah.
We have fingerprints. We got money going in many directions. I am intrigued to find out. Like, I want this, what's his name? VM Varga.
Call me VM.
I can't wait until his head explodes.
Why?
Because he's evil.
Oh yeah, that's true. He killed the lawyer, but he's taking advantage of some hapless idiots. But it's also the nature of, again, truth. What is the truth? Because again, the whole thing is this season. This is a story, not this is.
Well, that's why I'm on Gloria's side.
Yes.
And that is something that was missing from season 4. Is there was no moral center.
That's true. And then there was another joke where, when she was trying to go inside back into the police station, which had an automatic door also, and the door's not responding, and she asked Donnie, it's like, you see me, right? I'm standing here.
Yeah, I'm not a ghost.
He's like, yeah, Chief, you're standing here. And like when he shows up to pick her up at her house, he's like, oh, is that coffee? Like he quickly gets distracted and just helps himself to coffee and isn't even acting remotely sympathetic to the fact that her stepfather's just been murdered. Just, ooh, coffee.
I want to say hi to Ashley Lynn Geistorm.
Yeah, this is a good start to Fargo.
I'm so excited back to snow and crime and weird. This feels like Fargo. I am so incredibly happy.
Yes. And it's so much more uplifting to know that even though this isn't the last one we're going to review for the time being, that we're finishing on good seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that about covers all the scenes.
You wanna do the chat?
Yeah, if there's anything else in the chat.
Well, no, I'm asking, do you want to use your mouse and like highlight it?
I could try. Let me see if my computer will let me do it.
All right, I can do it. It's easier.
Oh, it's still exiting the full screen. It takes a while.
Daniel says, Emmett Brown? If there are no follow-up questions, I will say yes.
No, it is Emmett Stussy.
Herc 130 by Lemon. PvP was here. He left. And Herc said there was a raid. He would know. Scotty says Scotty. Or, sorry, Sci-Fi.
Sci-Fi Nation.
And what do we got? Mikey Suze 4 says raid.
Oh, hey, Mikey.
Lemon says,
okay, it's in the universe of the Fargo movie, but not related to the movie really. Too much except that way. Each season is, yes, it's an anthology, but sometimes the seasons tie to each other, and the first season tied to the movie, and then season 2 will have a season 1 tie, and so we're seeing how things are kind of working. And so that's, yeah. But also in answer to, we have Mikey Suze asks, why didn't Frances McDormand join the later TV series? Well, maybe she would if her character was written into it, but she's not. And in a sense, they kind of told you everything you needed to know about that character in the movie. And I think that would invite just too many comparisons. And, I mean, I know when they first tried to launch this show that people were like, why do you want to mess with something that's good and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, because it's a great universe and a great sandbox to play in,
Well, not only that, but it's also a great tone.
Yeah. Like I said, I still feel that the TV shows, not season 4, but the other ones still create more intrigue for me than the movie did. I felt much more engaged and excited by the TV shows, the seasons, than I did by the movie. So I think there's a lot of great stories to tell. Like, for instance, the original Star Wars movie is my favorite, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't be interested in The Empire Strikes Back, It's like, everything has to be, like, some people will be Fargo purists. We're like, oh, the movie and nothing else is so good. It's like, nobody's saying it necessarily has to be better. Like, some people might find it better, but it's like you said, it's a great, it is a great sandbox to play in. It's fun. So yeah.
Well, and I'm invested in it because when I found out that this is a true story was a lie, that's when I was like, I'm in. I cannot wait. I love it when someone tells me a lie. And if the lie works, great. I love, and especially on the big screen or the little screen. Like, I think it's just great storytelling. Because I think that people who see something that is titled with, this is a true story, and then they believe that, I think those people are stupid. If you see, this is based on a true story.
Which is interesting why this season in particular emphasizes the lie of that statement, which none of the other seasons do.
And they do that with even with the title cards.
Well, that's what I mean. That this is the only season where they've actually done that, even though it's obvious that it's like, for instance, season 5 is probably the one that took place had more of their scenes set in Minnesota than in a North Dakota than any of the other seasons. But even in episodes which were exclusively set in North Dakota, it still said the events depicted took place in Minnesota. I'm like, well, now you're lying to me now because we're in North Dakota for like the whole last couple episodes here. And so it's like, but for some reason with this season, they just decided to draw your attention to it. And some of that has to do, I'm sure, with the political climate of 2017, with the nature of truth and alternate fact, all that kind of stuff that they're going to be playing around with in the season, which we saw come back with a bit more cartoonish inventions in season 5 through Roy Tillman and his ilk. But we kind of get that this is doing, like, for instance, that one was season 5 is doing overt political commentary in an absurdist fashion. This is more subtle about it and how it's doing it. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the season and how it still maintains the hallmarks of what a Fargo show should be, which is that it's simple characters spiraling out of control, simple problems getting spiraled out of control to our hilarity and enjoyment.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that excites me, is it is to my hilarity and enjoyment.
Mm.
Like, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't mind that the names have been changed.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah, the names have been changed. Like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Sure. Like, it's all fiction.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Ashley Lynn, Gaia Storm says, "What's up, Cat?"
Hello. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you highlighted that one already.
Yeah, well.
Anything else?
I'm working.
Say hi to my Dragonfly. Dragonfly wants a piece of pie. He said he was going to be quoting things from the movie, so that might be from the movie. I don't remember. Soft boiled. This is Daniel's Hot Topics.
Who else? That's it. I think I'm bored.
Let me make you some eggs, Margie. Margie is enjoying her eggs, says Cinema Gulp. All right. Well, I guess we could thank everybody in the chat. Cinema Gulp, Dan.
We could.
Ashley, Mikey, Lemon Pie, PvP. Let's see who else. Herc130, thanks for coming, and DJ Play Nice. Thanks for being here. We also have. We got. It won't let me scroll to the top. There's gonna be girls on Christmas. Okay, yeah. Thanks to everybody for being here. You gonna set up the outro, or do you want me to?
Oh, you betcha.